And welcome to another episode of the Building Better Men podcast from Lifebuilders. It's great to be with you again. We are looking at marketplace ministry. If you are just joining us now, you may want to flip back to episode 9, which is part 1 of this series, Marketplace Ministry. So what is marketplace ministry? Listen to part 1, it'll tell you all about it. But today we're looking at the second question. How do we do business God's way? How do we do business God's way? Great that you're with us. Let's get started. Did you know the Hebrew word for work is avoda? A-V-O-D-A-H, avoda. Now, interestingly enough, this same word is used for worship. So we have a link here between work and worship through this word, avoda. So it's worth thinking about our approach to work. And maybe it could be summed up like this, that we should perform our duty, perform our work in the spirit of worship. So how do we do business God's way? Now, a lot of what we talk about in this particular episode is admittedly going to be from an employee-employer kind of relationship, and also the other way around, employer to employee. We may not cover a lot to do with if you're self-employed, but either way, you will glean something from this episode. So let's dig into another question here. How do we balance the need to perform, the need to achieve particular targets or objectives? How do we balance the need to perform with the command to love and serve other people? Colossians 3, verses 22 through to 25, I believe. Let's have a look. Yeah, through to 25. Let's have a read. Slaves, when I say the word slaves, think about workers, okay? Or employees. Employees, obey your human masters in all things, not only when they are watching you because you want to gain their approval, but do it with a sincere heart because of your reverence for the Lord. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as though you were working for the Lord and not for people. Remember that the Lord will give you as a reward what he has kept for his people. For Christ is the real master you serve, and all wrongdoers will be repaid for the wrong things they do, because God judges everyone by the same standard. Let's flip over to Proverbs chapter 18, verse 9, and it reads like this: a lazy person is as bad as someone who is destructive. So we have 2 scriptures there, one from Colossians, one from Proverbs. 2 takeaways. Number 1, we have a duty to work, and that approach to work should be done wholeheartedly. Takeaway number 2, motivation. Our motivation to work should be underpinned by reverence for the Lord. As we saw in verse 22 of Colossians 3, it said, do your work with a sincere heart because of your reverence for the Lord. So there's 2 takeaways. Work wholeheartedly, and the reason you work wholeheartedly should be motivated or underpinned by your reverence for the Lord. Now, if you are an employer, or you may be a top-level supervisor or manager, what does the Bible have to say about that? What does God have to say about that position? In Colossians chapter 4, verse 1, masters, be fair and just in the way you treat your slaves. Remember, I said when we use the word slaves here, think about the word workers or employees. So let's start that again. Masters, be fair and just in the way you treat your employees. Remember that you too have a master in heaven. It's Colossians 4, verse 1. So as an employee or as a manager, you have people working under you, so to speak, you have a duty to provide what is fair and right. I'm reminded of the account in Exodus where Pharaoh told the Hebrews that he wanted them to continue to produce the same amount of bricks, but he was no longer going to provide them with straw, which was part of the raw materials for them to make the bricks. So they had to find their own straw to make the bricks, but they still had to, in that same amount of time, produce the same amount of bricks. And sometimes we can feel like that, this whole bricks without straw situation, where we're expected to perform to the same level or produce to the same level, and the actual resources are not as they were before. Maybe there's been restructure within the organization or downsizing, etc. And that can be difficult to deal with as an employer. And if you look at this particular example, Pharaoh and the Hebrews, he wasn't making this decision because he was trying to put something in place to ensure the survival of Egypt. This was punishment. This was pure punishment to the Hebrews. So I guess the point I'm making is that we have a duty to work wholeheartedly. We have a duty to provide what is fair and right as an employer. So ensure that whatever you do or whatever you impose on your workforce is fair and is right. And the motivation should be the same. As the scripture said in Colossians 4 verse 1, remember that you also have a master in heaven. So our duty to the Lord is to treat those working for us in the right manner. Now, this also takes us to the whole issue of the relationship between employee and employer. And I've got a couple of questions really for you to ponder over, I guess. Every person you work for is different. Some people like emails, some people prefer one-on-one discussion, some people like detail, some people just like an overview, some people like a hands-on approach, others prefer to delegate and manage from a distance. Some say tomato, some say tomato. You get the idea, you know what I'm getting at. So a few questions to ponder over in terms of your relationship as an employee and your boss. So do you know your boss? Are you aware how to do your job in order to make his or her job easier? Number 2, do you love your boss as you love yourself? Do you pray for your boss? Do you submit to his or her authority even though you may need to challenge some of their decisions? Do you understand their expectations? Do you recognize that it's God who is in charge of your career, and he will use your workplace and your boss to accomplish his purpose in your life? That is an interesting one. The crux of the matter is this: our job is simply a channel through which God makes provision for us and through which we can fulfill the call of obedience on our life. We can manifest God's character. We can ultimately enter into the destiny that he has called us into, because doing our job is our quote-unquote reasonable service, to borrow a phrase from Romans 12. And working with or working for our boss should be done as if we were working for the Lord. And we covered the scripture earlier from Colossians 3. In conclusion, verses 22. How do we do business God's way? Very simply, it's this: we have a duty to work wholeheartedly as an employee. If you are an employer, you have a duty to treat your workers well, fairly and rightly. If you're self-employed, your customers, treat them well, treat them with respect. And the motivation is the same across the board. We work as though we were doing it for the Lord, because we know that the Lord is pleased when we treat people right. And to flip back to the phrase we looked at before, earlier on, you might remember this word, avoda, which is the same word used for work and also used for worship in parts of the original Hebrew text. And taking that word, we can, I guess, bunch all this together and say, when we work, we should work in the spirit of worship. God bless you. I hope that this has been of some insight to you, some encouragement to you, and that you'll be able to take some of this away to make some changes in your life and your approach to the life of work. God bless you. You've been listening to the Building Better Men podcast from Lifebuilders. In each episode, we bring to you information that you can use as a tool to help you make a positive impact in the kingdom, in the family, and in your community. To find out more about Lifebuilders, you can visit us at lifebuilders.org.uk. You can email us at lifebuilders@ntcg.org.uk. We're on social media. You can find us on Twitter, Lifebuilders UK. We're on Instagram at Lifebuilders Reloaded. And of course, good old Facebook. You can find us facebook.com/Lifebuilders. We've recently jumped onto Telegram. Well, I say recently, we've been on there since 2020. And you can search for us on Telegram by typing in Lifebuilders UK. Be encouraged. Be inspired. Be better.